Housing for veterans, the challenges for a San Diego program trying to get homeless veterans off the streets.
Waiting to see if you're going to lose your job or not for 9 months, that's not a very good feeling.
On pins and needles over a case of mistaken identity, one San Diego man struggled to set the record straight.
I think the challenge also when you're a volunteer is that they turn to you for answers.
And the network of volunteers giving support and hope to Syrian refugees. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. A man was arrested today in Missouri in connection to a series of bogus bomb threats at several Jewish centers around the country, including one here in La Jolla. 31-year-old Juan Thompson allegedly threatened at least 8 community centers. It was apparently part of a campaign to harass his ex-girlfriend. He allegedly targeted the Lawrence Family Jewish Community Center on February 20th via email. Thompson faces a cyber stalking charge, which carries a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison. Today, the Mexican consulate in San Diego announced a national initiative to help Mexican immigrants become more aware of their rights. KPBS Fronteras reporter Jean Guerrero says this will help them deal with possible changes to U.S. immigration policies.
I'm here at the Mexican consulate in Little Italy, where consular officials just announced the launch of the Mexican Defense Center. It's a national initiative, so this is just one of 50 consulates in the United States that are going to be participating.
Mexico's Consul General Marcelo Solorio says the initiative will focus on boosting existing resources, such as informational workshops and legal screenings.
We're going to inform our people, and through different workshops, such as Know Your Rights, and legal screenings. This is very important to know because sometimes we have this general information, but every case and every individual represents a different situation.
A schedule on the consulate website shows where some of the workshops are going to take place, including schools and churches. Earlier this year, Mexico's President Enrique Peña Nieto announced he was giving 1 billion pesos to the 50 Mexican consulates in the U.S. That means each consulate got about $1 million. He said it was to help them protect Mexicans in response to President Trump's immigration proposals.
The 50 consulates in the U.S. will transform into authentic defenders of migrant rights.
Consular officials said Mexican immigrants can go up to this booth in the consulate to ask for help, emphasizing that any help offered will be in accordance with U.S. and Mexican laws.
The tensions between the two countries have been escalating recently, with President Trump's threats against NAFTA as well as threats to have Mexico pay for the wall between the two countries. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
The Department of Homeland Security has a new mission. Money used to advocate for people in the country illegally is now being redirected to study the number of crimes committed by this group. President Trump announced the program this week, and at least one Arizona mom says it's about time.
This is a copy of what they have out in front of the Mesa Police Department on the memorial.
These plaques and pictures are precious to Mary Mendoza.
And then this is a picture that Brandon had taken of himself after he passed the sergeant's exam. On May 12, 2014, he was heading home from work, and he was hit head-on by an illegal criminal.
Mendoza's son, Brandon, was a Mesa, Arizona police officer. He was heading home from the department when authorities say he was hit head-on by a wrong-way intoxicated driver
who had driven over 35 miles the wrong way on 4 different freeways, 3 times the legal limit, drunk and high on meth, and killed my son.
The other driver was in the country illegally.
And that's what kind of started me on this quest, because I couldn't believe the numbers, the daily numbers of Americans killed by illegal criminals in our country.
Mendoza wrote a letter to President Obama questioning why the man who caused the accident killing her son hadn't been deported, even after being convicted of crimes years before. She's calling for law changes to keep people in the country illegally from registering vehicles in the U.S. with a driver's license, and to deport people convicted of crimes while in the country illegally. On Tuesday, she says she felt heard.
I have ordered the Department of Homeland Security to create an office to serve American victims. The office is called VOICE, Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement. We are providing a voice to those who have been ignored by our media and silenced by special interests.
I really feel like I can take a breather now, because I know that there's somebody in Washington, our president, President Trump. I know that there's actually somebody in Washington who has picked up the fight, and he is fighting right alongside us.
Doris Marie Provine is an immigration crime expert and Arizona State University professor. She says Trump is playing off of people's fears about a problem that doesn't exist.
It's just such a false herring, and it's so unfortunate that in a time when this country is so divided about immigration, that the president would create an agency designed to really make people think emotionally rather than rationally about this issue.
Experts say a number of studies, including one published in 2014 in the journal Justice Quarterly, show immigrants are responsible for a small fraction of crimes committed across the country. Still, Mendoza says even if they're statistically infrequent, the government needs to do something about crimes committed by people in the country illegally.
I was stunned. You know, obviously a man like Brandon, so courageous and such a part of a community, taken at such an early age, just left me devastated.
President Trump has reached out to Mendoza directly. She joined him on stage during campaign stops, and she was a guest at his inauguration. We continue to follow developments on the president's immigration policies on air and online at kpbs.org. San Diego's Housing Our Heroes aimed to house 1,000 homeless veterans in 1 year. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen reports that deadline has come and the city has fallen short.
I am very proud to announce the Housing Our Heroes initiative.
On January 14, 2016, Mayor Kevin Faulconer set for himself an unambiguous goal.
But our goal is simple. This year we will get 1,000 homeless veterans off the streets.
Turns out that goal was not so simple. 1 year after the City Council approved Housing Our Heroes, the program has secured housing for 554 homeless veterans. Not a small number, but only about halfway to the goal of 1,000. Michael McConnell is an advocate for the homeless. He says the mayor's focus on that number of 1,000 was misguided because now it may look like the program has failed.
I don't know if the messaging was the best, but the plan itself was very solidly put together. And I think what it's done is identify some real challenges to fully succeeding at ending veteran homelessness.
McConnell says those challenges include the high cost of housing, low vacancy rates, and a lack of trained outreach workers going out on the streets and bringing homeless veterans into the system. Eric Arundel served in the Army and has been living on the streets for 15 months. He recently started trying to get a housing voucher, but he says service providers are spread out and lack coordination.
It's like a job, just going 10 different places to get one housing voucher, and then it's slow if, you know, it happens at all. I mean, I know people who tried 2 years ago to get them, and, you know, they just can't find any place that's any good, or by the time they get there, it's already rented.
A spokesman for Mayor Faulconer said, quote, "We know we set a high bar, and we're going to keep working until we clear it." Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Many of us have gotten a traffic ticket a time or two and paid the fine. But what happens when you never get a ticket, but a collection agency still comes after you? KPBS investigative reporter Amita Sharma has the story of a San Diego man who's been working to clear his name.
In early 2012, this man received a letter from the California Franchise Tax Board stating that he owed $1,496 for 3 cases identified only by numbers. It was his first clue that the collection agency Alliance One had not heeded his pleas during numerous calls to his home that he was not a deadbeat.
Immediately I said, I haven't gotten any tickets, so this is not me. And plus the name was Incorrect.
The notice was addressed to...
It says Gilberto G. Herrera.
And you are?
Gilberto Herrera.
That's Gilberto with a V, not a B, and no initial G for a middle name. So Gilberto Herrera researched records at the county courthouse and visited Alliance 1. A clerk showed him the original traffic tickets made out to Gilberto G. Herrera, but the B had been crossed out and overwritten in hand was the letter V. He says he asked why, but wasn't given a decent answer. Herrera showed clerks at both the courthouse and Alliance 1 his driver's license and social security number and told them they had the wrong guy.
I tried to convince him that this is not me.
But collection calls like this one continued.
Friday, 1:36 p.m.
Hello, we are trying to reach Gilberto G. Herrera. If this is Gilberto G. Herrera, please contact the offices of Alliance 1.
Finally, Herrera went to a judge who concluded the case was a matter of mistaken identity. He ordered Herrera be removed from collections. Herrera then went directly to Alliance 1 and gave the company the court's order.
Then they said, well, we can't give you any information because now this is not you. So it kind of got really upsetting.
Ultimately, Alliance 1 sent a letter saying it had requested credit bureaus to delete from their records that Herrera owed any money. But it was too late. A portion of the nearly $1,500 that Gilberto G. Herrera owed was taken from Gilberto Herrera's income taxes. Herrera's credit score dropped.
It went from one day from it being in the 700s to in the low 500s, 530.
His job as a Defense Department worker with security clearance was now at risk. It took nearly a year for his name to be cleared with his employer.
Waiting to see if you're going to lose your job or not for 9 months. That's not a very good feeling.
Herrera is now suing the company for illegal debt collection. KPBS reached out multiple times to Alliance 1 for a response, but the company did not respond to any of our calls. San Diego Superior Court, which has a contract with Alliance 1, also did not respond to interview requests. Herrera's lawyer, Salim Kawaja, says there's no excuse for what happened.
The person who owed the traffic tickets has a different name, different address, different company. He has different date of birth, different social security. Everything is different.
Kawaja says with just a few keystrokes, Alliance 1 could have easily verified what Gilberto Herrera had consistently told them for years, that he did not owe them any money for unpaid traffic tickets.
They have skip tracing ability, which means that they could research databases, legal databases, and find out all kinds of information about the person, who these people are, what are their date of birth, social security, where they have lived in the last 10 years, where they work. Easily they could do that.
Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
The state agency that oversees utilities has confirmed to KPBS it's investigating San Diego Gas and Electric for potentially violating a state law on lobbying. But the utility argues it's done no such thing. KPBS reporter Claire Tragesser has details.
The law in question is about an alternative energy program called Community Choice that would allow local governments to bypass SDG&E and buy energy directly. Utilities like SDG&E aren't allowed to lobby against Community Choice. Instead, they have to set up independent organizations that aren't funded by ratepayers to do the lobbying. SDG&E has done that, but the organization isn't yet fully approved by the state. But people working for the organization spoke about Community Choice anyway at a public meeting last month. A state spokeswoman says that's why they're investigating SDG&E. However, she didn't say what the potential consequences would be if they find the utility broke the rules. An SDG&E spokeswoman says the utility isn't lobbying and that the state shouldn't be blocking its independent organization's First Amendment right to free speech. Claire Tragesser, KPBS News.
We take a look at competing ideas for the Qualcomm Stadium site. Are any of them winners for the city? We found out which San Diego courtroom is harder on the poor than most when it comes to traffic fines. And why did the Marines still use live animals to train battlefield medics? We'll find it all out on the roundtable tonight at 8:30.
State emergency response experts are preparing for the big one. They're working on a plan to deal with what they're calling a 200-year storm, and they say California is almost due. Climate experts say the last one was in 1862. It turned Central Valley into a massive lake. Thousands of people drowned. A mega storm plan would need to include provisions for widespread evacuations, but they aren't reinventing the wheel.
And if we really look at it as what do we need to be able to do, and sometimes that doesn't have to be looked at differently for different scenarios. For example, being able to take care of or help communities take care of a lot of people in a shelter environment, or what we call mass care. We may have to do that for an earthquake. We may have to do that for a flood.
Once the plan is complete, the Office of Emergency Services says it will conduct practice drills. Well, you can swap out your sunglasses for an umbrella. Rain is around the corner. Regina Miller has tonight's forecast.
We'll take a look at the satellite and radar across California over the last 6 hours, and you can see how we've had some rain showers here around Northern California, around Redding, for example, and some of those clouds around San Francisco. But as you go farther to the south, Fresno on down to Los Angeles and San Diego, things looking very quiet. We have mainly clear skies for tonight in the metro areas with a temperature of 53 degrees. And we have mainly clear skies also in Ramona at 35. Borrego Springs is at 41 degrees for your overnight low. Oceanside is at 45, and in Chula Vista will be at 49 degrees. Now, looking ahead to your Saturday, we have some high pressure in place, so that is going to keep things dry. Central and Southern California looking quiet. We do have a frontal boundary across Northern California. That is going to be bringing showers there as we go through the weekend. And we could see some showers around by Sunday as that front drops a little farther southward. So along the coast here on Saturday, cooler with times of some sun and a temperature of 65 degrees. Some showers around for Sunday with a temperature of 63. Then on Monday, we have mostly sunny skies, cooler with a high of 61 degrees, mostly sunny on Tuesday and 68. And then the temperatures rebound into the 70s, 74 degrees for Wednesday, sunny and pleasant. Inland locations, cooler with some sun on Saturday at 71 degrees. On Sunday, we could see a brief shower or two in the area with a temperature of 66. On Monday, mostly sunny and cool with a high of 61 degrees. Check out your overnight low dropping into the upper 30s. And then Tuesday, pleasant and warmer with a high of 73, and we are back to 80 degrees by Wednesday, sunny and very warm. In the mountain locations, cooler with some sun on Saturday and 60 degrees. You're dropping into the upper 20s for Saturday night, so it's going to be cold. On Sunday, cooler with a partly to mostly cloudy sky. We'll call it variable cloudiness and a temperature of 45 degrees. So definitely going to notice the difference, quite noticeable. Monday, sunshine and a bit milder, a temperature of 52 degrees. By Tuesday, we're mostly sunny and warmer with a high of 64. Sunny and very warm on Wednesday with a high temperature of 73. In the desert locations, partly sunny for your Saturday and 80 degrees. Not as warm on Sunday with variably cloudy skies and 72. On Monday, we have sunny, pleasant conditions, a high of 71, mostly sunny on Tuesday. And then we're at 86, sunny and very warm on Wednesday. I'm Regina Miller, KPBS News.
The economic forecast is sunny, so says one of San Diego's top economists. Lynn Reeser's annual economic forecast predicts California and San Diego will do well. She expects job growth, more defense spending, and a boost for tourism. Reeser says a long-running housing shortage is touching more people.
But it's also now the middle class, the people, the teachers, the firemen, people that we rely on every day for services who can't qualify for subsidized federal housing, but they can't afford housing in the marketplace.
Reeser says the state and national economy are expected to grow in the coming year, and that should help the local economy as well. There's a special run walk along Mission Bay on Saturday to raise awareness about the importance of being screened for colon cancer. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg says the disease is the second leading cause of cancer-related death in the U.S.
Nearly 52,000 Americans died from colorectal cancer in 2013. Studies indicate a colonoscopy can greatly reduce one's chances of dying from the disease. Dr. Stonewall Anderson is president of the California Colorectal Cancer Coalition. He says since 2009, the annual Mission Bay Run Walk has raised money to screen the uninsured in San Diego.
We've done about 225 free colonoscopies, found 8 cancers, and 7 of the 8 apparently are cured.
The American Cancer Society says in 2014, 69% of California adults had been screened for colorectal cancer. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
They're sending help and hope to Syrian refugees. Producer Layla Kazmi introduces us to a Seattle group mobilizing volunteers from around the world.
Those are all clothes back there. There's one big box of blankets back there.
It's loading day at Salam Cultural Museum, or SCM as it's known.
Should I take right?
The small Seattle nonprofit has mobilized volunteers around the world to provide aid to Syrian refugees living in dire conditions in camps in Jordan and Greece.
We need heavy boxes.
Entrepreneur and activist Rita Zavida is the founder of SCM. For the past 5 years, her travel office has doubled as a warehouse for donated goods.
I had lived in Syria during the time of the First War of the Father, and I had been there for 10 years, and I know what it's like to have a barrel of a tank in your living room window and people being killed, so that I'm walking down the street and I'm actually literally walking over bodies. So when I saw this going on, I just thought, can't let it happen.
She went to Jordan to see how she could help.
At that point, I ended up meeting some Syrian American doctors that were there that were trying to do the same thing as I was. I just wasn't seeing the world community coming to help, you know, so, I mean, a lot of it had to be smaller NGOs that had to do this.
So they decided to work together, and Rita established SCM Medical Missions.
Then we started doing medical missions every 45 days into Jordan. And we did that for about 4 years, going out with doctors that would volunteer. After that, the situation started changing, but now we're in a different sort of a place with them in that we know this is going to be more permanent. We have no idea if it's a year, 2 years, what's going to happen. So we've established a school, we've established a clinic.
Volunteers come from around the world to go on SCM missions, currently working primarily in the camps in Greece.
I think the challenge also when you're a volunteer is that they turn to you for answers. They'll ask you, when are we leaving? When are we moving? Do you know when the borders are going to open? And it can be hard because you don't have those answers. We worked in 3 camps. We mainly operated in Iliadis, and then there were 2 others that we also worked in, which were Frakapur and Karamalis. All 3 of them were in large warehouses, and so what you'll see is just lines of tents. And they're just tent after tent after tent. Kids are playing, men are in groups. Women kind of continue their daily life. They wash their blankets or they wash their clothes.
In addition to working as a clinic translator, Sarah taught at the camp school.
We wanted to always kind of create exercises of release, so they could paint, they could color, they could play with Play-Doh. And I volunteered to lead a yoga stretching with a lot of the kids, and then that turned into a salsa class, and the kids loved it.
Back in Seattle, a team of volunteers is packing the next shipment of goods to their refugee camps.
I'd retired from a corporate position, so I came over and talked to her and said, can I volunteer? What can I do to help? So she put me to work, and I started working on the last shipping container that went in June.
The boxes have items in them, baby boxes, clothing, school supplies, different things, because it will get there in time for the winter. So we need to get warm clothing in for people, and we're desperately in need of shoes.
These bags are made by people from all over the country. They're with Quilters Beyond Borders, and we have some school supplies in here for them.
And they put little tags on them from Aunt Mary, you know, we love you, we're thinking of you. These are Americans. There's a knitting group, so they do clothes. Boxes from here are going to Jordan. We'll have a container loading party and we'll put it out on the web and ask for assistance for people to come and help us load the container. And then in usually about a month and a half, 2 months, it gets to Jordan.
With no end in sight for the Syrian conflict, how long is SEM prepared to continue their humanitarian work?
As long as it lasts. You can't just quit. You know, there's no way. I mean, unless we see something that the world has finally decided to do something.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. And before we go, we leave you with a look at what's coming up next week from Man's Best Friend on Evening Edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.